What's up, boys? It's Diaphone coming with a Yuel 101 guide. Just kind of a general overview of what Yuel is capable of, and some strategies and counterplay options. And basically, if you want to get a very good grasp of the character, this is the video for you. So why would you play Yuel? Besides being a waifu, she's a strong offense and rushdown character, and she has really good ways to steal turns, and because of that, she has really good defense, right? She has 2 invincible reversals besides super, so technically 3, which is the most any character in the game has, basically, which makes her really unique. She has a lot of different options. She has her stance, she has backflip, which she has different options out of, and she has a lot of unique tools that other characters in the game don't really have, right? It's kind of weird because a lot of people are saying that this character is hard to learn, and I don't think so, especially because you can kind of just play neutral with one button and kind of coast off that. She does have a stance, but you can get away without using it. So that's why I consider her to be easy to play. And she has a high skill ceiling because she has stance and she has different Oki options that you guys need to get used to. So why I think she's strong or some of her pros, she just has a lot of different pressure options. It's very tough to deal with, especially when you get into the stance stuff that she's not used to. 5M 5M is like basically one of the strongest neutral buttons in the game. It's really strong, right? It allows for hit confirms because it's 2 hits. It's tough to whiff punish. It has great range. It's just a super strong normal. And she has one of the strongest defensive toolkits in the game. She has a 9-frame DP and an invulnerable backflip that is invul in frame 1 and the regular one's invul in frame 3. It's really crazy. And she has a 5-frame jab. It's really strong. I actually think it's the strongest defensive toolkit in the game. Some of her cons, like she doesn't have much true mix-up. Like she doesn't have a command grab or a fast overhead, that sort of thing. She's more of a strictly strike throw mix-up. You have to mix up your options a lot to open the opponent up, right? If you know her options and you can react accordingly with the proper option, then it can mitigate a lot of her pressure. Neutral is lacking against characters with strong normals or fireballs. So especially like characters with far normals you could throw out preemptively and they're hard to whiff punish, especially if they out prioritize her 5M, can be tough to deal with. She has a really hard time of getting around fireballs other than the universal options that everyone has, which is just jump or slowly walk them to the corner. So while she does have a couple tools to force her way in, like backflip low and jump U, they don't really give that good of reward. And I think utilizing your stance can be tricky. It loses to a lot of different options. And because of that, it feels underwhelming compared to the rest of her kit, especially when you consider how strong some of her other tools are. Stance doesn't feel that strong, and it's gonna take a little bit of time to get used to. So let's go over key normals, right? Her kit is pretty standard. I mean, her 5L, pretty standard 5L, 2L hits low, close 5M, it's just your typical close 5M. It's actually -2 on block, so you don't really do stuff like 5M, combos a counter hit, but that's not really something you're gonna do. Her 2M is pretty good. It's think of it as like a slightly worse version of Cat's 5M. It is 7 frames, which is basically one of the fastest 5Ms in the game, but it gets overshadowed by this button, which is 5M. Actually crazy. I'll actually talk about it a little bit more, but let's go over other normals. Our 2H is our standard anti-air. It feels like it's a little slow to come out and it doesn't have the best hitbox, but it's functional and you can get really good consistent damage off of it. So it's probably like a mid-tier 2H. Our 5H, I actually think our close 5H is really good. It's 3 hits, which means you can hit confirm into it. You actually get like pretty cool links. You can get 5H in the stance. You can get 5H into 2-2M, into a full combo. You can do 5H if you confirm it's on block. You can go into 2-2H and frame trap off of that. Or of course you can just go into the auto combo, right? And it's only like, I believe 7 frames, which is really good. It'll combo from stuff like counter hit 2L into 5H, that works. Her 2U is just your standard sweep. It is 7 frames, so it can combo from stuff like counter hit 5L into 2U, which makes it pretty good, especially if you're doing it in pressure and you have really good ways to cancel after that sweep. It's something just good to end your block strings in. Her jump normals, she has jump L. I don't really see myself using it this much except for safe jumps just because it's really easy to time. Her jump M, I honestly, I'm gonna be real. I never use this normal. I don't know when you should. Maybe it's decent as like an air-to-air, but it's 2 hits, but the second hit is not actually an overhead. The jump normal you want to be using about 90% of the time is her jump H. It's 2 hits, and they both hit overhead, and it crosses up, right? So it's basically your catch-all button. The one thing you do have to keep in mind is that you press jump H a little bit earlier than when you'd press most jump buttons, right? Because it's 2 hits, you want to hit the jump H a little bit early so you get enough time for both J-H hits to hit. The other jump normal she has is jump U, which is actually, it doesn't do the most damage, right? You saw, I think that's about the most you can get from it is about 900 damage. Maybe you can get 1,000 if they're like really tall. But the good thing is it's only -1 on block, which means that you can do stuff like JU on block, and then if they try to retaliate, you just go into backflip, or you can go back into DP, or you can press the slow button to try to catch their delayed mash. So the fact that it's really safe on block and you have good ways to disrespect after it means it's something good to throw out. But of course, if they have a DP, they could just DP it, or they could do a delayed 2H. The other issue with JU is that some characters like Vasaraga or Zoe, or characters that have really high reaching 2Hs, sometimes they don't even need to guess depending on the height you do it at, and they'll just hit you out of it if you're trying to bait like anti-air, and then you get counter hit into death. The other thing is like it's really bad air-to-air because it takes a while to come out. So you do have to do some discretion, but making them block it's not the worst thing. On hit, you don't get anything. You are plus, so you can go for like a strike throw mix-up or something like that. So let's get into 5M. I think 5M is a crazy good move, and I think it deserves its entire section, right? Pretty much the god normal. It's hit confirmable. If I get a 5M on hit, I'm gonna go into 236M. On block, you don't have to cancel it. Or on block, you can go into 214L, you can go into stance, you can go into 22X, you can go into a delayed 236L. I'm going to go into 236L because I think that's the best option to default to, because it frame traps a 5-frame normal and it pushes them towards the corner. And you're safe after it. It's a really good thing to do. Let's show you guys what that looks like. On hit, you go into 236M for the knockdown. We got 3 hit confirms, and you see how I went for 236L there, and it's a safe and it frame traps. So even if they block the whole thing, you're completely safe. Hit confirming that move is one of the keys to this character. And you can also hit confirm in the SSBA, actual hit confirm off of 2 hits. This does a ridiculous amount of damage. 5k for just getting hit by a 5M that goes crazy far, right? There is occasional, like, if they are too high up, you have to go into DP. Let's say you catch their empty jump. You don't want to go into 236M. You just gotta be very careful about that because that's actually punishable. And if you see them at that height, either go to 236L, you're at least safe. You can also go into MTP like that. EX works, but it's slightly less consistent and you don't really spend the cooldown. The other thing that you guys are gonna find pretty useful is every time you press M, double tap it. For some reason, close 5M has a crazy proximity range. So even from like here, it'll activate. So if someone's running towards you and you do a 5M, you know, normally that will happen, but sometimes you'll get a close 5M. So in order to keep the hit confirm consistent, what I recommend doing is just pressing every single time you do 5M in neutral, press it twice. And you see how it's the same input each time? But yeah, that kind of goes over 5M. I mean, honestly, your neutral game is going to look a lot like dashing back and forward, doing flips, backing off, and then running forward and doing 5M. Just keep in mind, you do want to cycle these block options, right? You don't always want to do 236L, the frame trap, because they'll just mash DP every time. Probably the other common option is do 214L to back off, or do 22X. Or another thing I like that's not on the slide is do overhead. If they are trying to like check you with a 2L, you'll go over the 2L with your overhead. Well, let's go over stance. When you're in the stance, you can counter basically any mid attack. So let's say Yuel's doing 5M. You can counter, you get 700 damage, which isn't the best, but it makes the opponent respect you and you do get Oki after. So you see you can cancel stance and run forward and get a combo. You can also stay in stance, but I recommend that you cancel out of stance and just run forward. You do get better Oki that way. Stance will lose to throw, overhead, low, projectiles. It loses to a lot of things, right? So it's kind of a hard call out on a mid attack. So let's say I just do a run forward sweep. It beats my stance clean. Stance in neutral has its uses, but it's mainly just to call out a far poke like that. Or if your opponents are mashing. So take for example, I cancel this in the stance. I hit 5M after because 5M is a really good normal, and then I get hit by the counter, right? You shouldn't rely on it too much because, again, it only does 700 damage. But it's pretty safe, and you can cancel out of stance, and you're not really taking too much risk if you change up the timing when you're in stance and when you're out stance, right? Because you can exit stance pretty quickly. One thing you want to be careful of is doing it just raw and neutral. She can be hit out of the startup. So you see, like, you can't really react, but you can, like, just get hit preemptively. All right, so let's go over stance normals. 5L, it's really quick, it's 5 frame. The main time you're gonna do this, in my opinion, is after her 5M. So her 5M on block is 0 frames, which means you can cancel out of stance and with a 6 frame normal, and you can counter hit anything faster than 6 frames, right? Which some characters don't really have a good 6 frame option from that distance, which makes it really good. However, 5M can be beaten by something that's 5 frames, or it can clash with something that's 6 frames. So let's look at this. I will clash. The main use of 5L is that it's 5 frames and it'll beat any 5 frame normal in the game, which basically means you're plus after 5M as long as you enforce the 5L after. So I'm gonna mash after 5M, and I got hit out. In order to convert off that, you don't get too much, but you can do a 5L, 5L, 2L, and then you're left plus in their face. That's about like 1300. It's not terrible, but if you're going to be using 5M to beat lows or to evade a throw, then you want to make sure you enforce the mix-up afterwards when they block the 5M. The other thing to keep in mind is that her throw in this stance is actually like a hop throw. And so you can mix up between hop throw or hop and then 5M, because the 5M will beat lows, but it also beats throws, right? So that was the throw. It comes out pretty quick, but it looks just like her hop. See how that looks very, very similar? So you could do something like hop, 5M to bait the throw, and you can get a bunch of damage after, especially if it's on counter hit. So you see I got counter hit. You can go into close 5H into pretty much anything you want. One other thing that's really good about stance is that it cancels out her 214L. You don't really want to always commit to the unsafe follow-up action of 236L, right? Your opponent can hit you out of that. Same thing with her 236M, and that's also unsafe on block. So in order to cancel that, you just go into stance, and then you can do whatever you want. A really common thing is that, let's say you do a block string into flip, you can go into her 5H, which her 5H is, you space it like at this distance, she turned blue, which means you're actually plus on block. So as long as you get that spacing right, throwing in her 5H is really good. The other thing not a lot of people know is you can actually charge her 5H. So you don't want to always charge it because they can just react with a DP. Like if I see her charging like this, all right, that's a free DP. But if you're at like this range, because it goes further, you are plus as well. So it's good to catch the opponent off guard, but I recommend just doing the normal version when you can. It's also pretty easy to whiff punish because she's charging up for so long, right? So you want to be really careful about how you use that. The other thing you can do is you can cancel normals or specials in the stance. Something like auto combo in the stance into 5L. You can mash it, but if you're reacting to the stance, it's practically impossible to react to. Let's say I try to react to this. Yeah, I tried to react and I didn't even get a normal out, but like oftentimes you'll get a counter hit there. And once they stop pressing buttons, then you can go for the 5M or throw mix-up. Her 2L is pretty much only used for comboing after 5L. You can do like some stagger pressure with it, like if you want to like press a button in this range, but her 2L is minus, so If you do combo into it, they basically get a free 2L on block. Not the best thing to do. So I try to avoid using it. I try to either, you know, go something like that and then go into like 2M. 2M, it hits low and it's plus, but it does take a little bit of time to come out. So you do need to condition them. You can also cancel out of stance. So something like this. It can be hard to deal with if you're not hitting the right button. The other thing is, like, if you want to enforce your pressure and they want to hit a far normal that reaches you, you can just do nothing. And then your parry comes out, right? So you can seek some of the layers, but if you're new to the character, don't do too much stance. And then when you're learning the character, just try to slowly integrate stance. Try to do after some specials, some normals, see when they're hitting buttons. If you convince them not to mash, that's a really good time to do stance and then start throwing in some 5Ms and stance throws and see if that opens them up. She has a lot of specific links in stance. This is just one example, the links in the PowerPoint. If you get a counter hit combo, let's say the 2M counter hits or the 5L counter hits on counter hit crouch, you do get a lot of different links. So again, you have to vary your pressure a lot, but you will get rewarded for it. All right, so specials. Her thrust is her 236X series. Light and heavy are safe at -3. Her medium is -8, so you almost never want to throw this out. It's not really good like whiff punish tool or anything like that. The main time you're going to be doing a medium is after 5M or an auto combo like this. 5M's your main auto combo ender, just because it pushes them to the corner. In neutral, I would pretty much just stick with light. Unless you're close to the corner, I think throwing out a random EX is good just because the risk reward is so strong. You can like get something like that, and if they're a little closer to the corner, you get a wall bounce. And the far wall bouncing, or basically any wall bounce with 236H, is where she gets the majority of her damage from. Basically, save the heavy version for when you're close to the corner. Because you're going to be doing 236L a lot, especially after forward medium, it's really important to understand your options after. You can either do the backflip, you can either go into stance, you can do a mash if they're trying to like run up on you or something. You can do a delayed mash, again, if they're trying to run up on you and you're scared they're going to check you with like a 2L, or you can DP. It's very important to cycle those options. She's not that minus after 236L, so as long as you stay unpredictable with it, you can still sort of keep your turn because her options to disrespect pressure are really good. So I'm just a Yuel doing some mid-screen pressure. That's blocked. I can go backflip and then steal my turn back. And after the backflip, she's plus as well. Obviously, you saw the 2L whiff there. Basically, it makes everything whiff. Like, I could do 5M, and you know how far 5M reaches? It didn't even work there. It has info on frame 3, which means that if you're doing it after a move that's like -3 on block, it's going to beat every option that I do immediately, right? And they have ways to counter this. They can OS it. They can do like a jab in the fireball or a jab into a far heavy if, you know, their character has a normal that reaches that far. The EX version is different because it has info on frame 1 compared to the regular versions, which have info on frame 3. So a good example would be Yuel. I get a knockdown. And I'm gonna do the light version, right? On wake up. I got a counter hit. But if I do the EX version, see, I get out for free. The only character that can stuff it with a 5-frame move is Belial. Belial's 2L will beat 236L into backflip. Every other character, that's it. And the other thing is, because Belial's 2L is a mid, you can go into stance and beat that out. So after you block the flip, it's actually plus on block. And if it hits, you get a combo. So typically, if I do a flip, your default option is just go into 5L auto combo. Even if you're spaced out, it is your advantage. So you can do something like a 2M or far 5L. It's not going to combo except on counter hit. EX backflip, you do get a close medium. Yeah. Again, it's a little tricky, but you do get close medium for a little bit extra damage. Most of the times when you cancel the backflip, again, your most common option should be 5U just because it's the safest. So you might be thinking, why not just do backflip into a plus on block move every time? Well, this is what will happen. you can easily hit her out of it, and you can react. So you just wait for the backdash, press 5M or press whatever button you want, and react to it. And there's a lot of different ways you can condition them not to press a button. The medium version of this actually will go under some normals. So let's say I'm pressing 5M on reaction to backflip. See, I actually got counter hit there. Now, some characters do have options like Catalina or Jita with really good 5Hs that will beat both options, and they're active enough to beat both options. So the other option you can do, again, you do backflip and then do 5H. And so if I'm reacting to this with 5M, my 5M gets whiff punished, right? Or my 5H or whatever I'm trying to do will get whiff punished. At the very least, like if it's not a true whiff punish, I'm plus on block there. She can actually low profile a lot of fireballs with her 214M. So if it's like a Grand Fireball or a Jita Fireball or a Catalina Fireball, you can't go under. But if it's like, take for example a Percival Fireball or Vasaraga Fireball, you can't go under it and it will beat both options. So if you see a Fireball, you just cancel in the 5U. You can dodge, you can block it, you can do whatever. If you get a counter hit, you do get a combo afterwards, right? Even a non-counter hit, if the spacing is like pixel perfect, I mean like literally pixel perfect, you can't get a combo. Her 22X series, there's not really too much to talk about it. Late version is minus, but on counter hit you do get a combo. So the most common application I see to this is, let's say you're doing a 2H on block, and that will counter hit. If they're mashing a normal, any 5-frame normal, that will beat it. So you can do something like this, on counter hit, you get a combo, and you can get a pretty decent chunk of damage, especially if you're closer to the corner. If they are mashing after your auto combo, 2-2L is a really good option too, because it will beat 5-frame normals. It's really hard to get a combo from that though. You can go in the stance, you can get a stance 2-2. Here, I'll show you guys. So you can get something like that, that's about 2k, and then you can press your advantage afterwards. If they do a crouching normal, so you get something like this, with the EX and the EXDP, so you get a good amount of more damage. Most of the time they'll probably be mashing crouching because her stance counters mids. 2-2M, it's really slow, so if you want to like disrespect them, if you don't think they're gonna mash, do 2-2M, right? So if I do it from auto combo, I'm just gonna get hit out. But if they aren't mashing, I'm plus on block. And let's say they do get hit, you get a close 5H. It does really good damage, it's a really good starter, and it's your turn afterwards. So think of it as like, if you want to steal your turn back because you don't think they're going to mash, do 2-2M. The other cool application for it is if you do 5H 1 hit in the 2-2M, it all combos, and then you can get a 5M afterwards. Actually, you can get a 5H afterwards. And then 2-2H, think of it as it's slightly slower than 2-2L, but if they're like doing like delayed normals, I think 2-2H is really good to call it out, and you're plus on block. So it's a really good thing just to cancel into like anywhere, like even after like auto combo. But let's say they're mashing a slower normal, like 5H, or more likely they are doing a normal at delayed timing. So you see I get a combo there. Yeah, if you cancel any of the hits from 5H into 2-2H, it counter hits 5 frames. So that's another really good option, especially because you can kind of hit confirm or 3-hit 5 heavy close, and if you see it's blocked, you can just go into 2-2H for the plus frames and the frame trap as well. So it's a really good option just to cover multiple bases. 2-2H is also used in combos. We'll get to that later. And other than that, her DP is pretty standard. Lightning EX are 9 frames, her medium's 11 frames. One thing to keep in mind, it does have like a pretty shitty hitbox, so like if they're jumping over you, something like that will just whiff. General, I'd recommend using light on wake up unless you're about to die. Yeah, EX if you are about to die or you know it's gonna hit. Medium, I don't find myself using too much outside of like hit confirms and that sort of thing. All right, so let's talk about her combos. She actually doesn't have too many combos to learn. I mean, she has a lot of like specific links and that sort of thing. The idea is you get a combo, let's say auto combo mid screen. You want to go into light thrust if that's the only thing you can hit confirm from lights. medium thrust if it's from auto combo or mediums, or DPs when your thrust isn't available, or SBA or SSBA if it'll kill or it'll come close. She doesn't really have to make too many different options when you are choosing what combo to go into or what special to go into. You know, she also doesn't have that many specials to combo into. Let me show you some examples of links that you'll see. 2L, 2L, 5L into thrust. So something like that will work. Counter 5L into 2M. Counter at 2L into 2M also works. That's something pretty common. 2L into 2U does work, but it doesn't combo into medium thrust, so just keep that in mind. And then of course you can do something like 2L, 5M, or 2L, 5H into auto combo. Right? The other thing you need to learn is her anti-air confirms. She does have a couple. They're the same pretty much in the corner mid-screen, but you can get a little extension in the corner. 2H into 22H. This is the basic combo. I recommend you just go into 22H, 5H into 236M. At first, I found this really inconsistent, but if you delay the 22H as much as possible, it's really consistent. The other thing you can do is after the one hit 2H, you can cancel in the stance into her 2H, and then get a very similar follow-up. You can also do that part and then you basically combine the two combos. And you get almost 4K. It's really good. The only reason you don't always want to cancel 2H in the stance 2H is because 2H and the 22H actually works on non-counter hit. See, you get the same damage, 3.3K, and it doesn't matter if they get counter hit or not, but that's what happens if you go with the 2H into stance 2H. What would you recommend if only one hit happened non-counter hit? I mean, you could do something like that, but that's kind of hard to confirm in my opinion. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you get like a counter hit 2H, one hit, you just go into 22H, you go into the same combo. You just do an extra 2H, you get a couple hundred extra damage. In the corner, it's about the same thing, except you go into EX thrust instead of medium thrust. And then you can get whatever you want. That's SSBA, but typically I end in like EXDP just for the hard knockdown, and then I go into like something like the safe normal. But you can see that does tons of damage. Our anti-air, it's not the most vertical, but you do get tons of damage after it. Some of our corner combos, in general, the rule of thumb is instead of confirming the M thrust, you want to always confirm the EX thrust whenever possible. The most basic VMB is any starter into EX thrust into your DP, right? You can do LDP, you can do EXDP. I wouldn't recommend ending in medium DP because the knockdown's a little hard to get Oki after. If you do a 2U in the EX thrust, you do get a 2H afterwards. If you're spaced from the corner, you get a extra time on the wild bounce and you get a bigger combo. So something like that will work. You can also go into 5H into EXDP. You can go into SSBA. I change up my, like if I do LDP, EXDP, etc. based on what Oki I want to use, right? So speaking of Oki, she actually has a lot of different layers to Oki, but the general idea, and I'm not going to completely flush it out because I could do like a whole guide on Oki, but the idea is either to get a safe 2L, which means that if they do a 9-frame DP on wake up, you'll block in time if you do a 2L, and if they're like mashing, your 2L will hit them. You can actually get a stance 2M, which is the same idea, is that 2M hits if they're mashing, and if they do a DP, you can block, or you can do the stance counter, or a DP save 2-hit jump H, which you can get like an extra combo off of. Because the jump heavy is 2 hits overhead, you can sort of get a mix-up that's also DP safe, but it has to be at a very specific height to hit them. So some examples I put together. Oki situation after forward throw. So at first I'm gonna mash, and you see I get hit out, and then if I do DP, see I get countered. Or if I do EXDP, it just whiffs and then I can get a full punish when they come down. I've just been doing a safe jump. I'm not gonna lie. Straight up, this is what I've been doing. If you hold up forward after throw, you get a safe jump. I've been pretty lazy with my Oki. If you guys do a safe jump after forward throw, I have no problem with that. In fact, if your execution's not where it should be or you're just learning the game, go for the easy setups, right? Some other Oki setups that you can play with. Medium thrust, I mean, you literally just run forward, do a strike throw. The cool thing about ending in EXDP or EX thrust mid-screen, if you know your opponent mashes a lot, is you can do an empty jump 2L, and both of them are 9-frame DP safe. Again, that's a kind of easy setup. Honestly, it's better just to manually time your 2L because you have run momentum, but if you're looking for something that's like lag proof and it will beat a wake up DP, just do an empty jump after EXDP and then do 2L. Let's say, again, you're having trouble with people mashing DP on your wake up, empty jump 2L. And you see they block. But if they mash, they get hit. There's also like, you can whiff a normal and get a safe jump to hit jump heavy. You just do your basic auto combo, 5M EX thrust with a 5M, and then you get a 2-hit jump heavy afterwards. And if they DP, they block in time. So it's really good. And then once you establish the jump too heavy, you can start to do stuff like and you could do something like a jump L 2L, because the jump L has less hits done, it makes it really hard to block both those at the same time. The basics are just try to get either a safe 2L, safe stance 2M, DP safe, 2-hit jump H, and then once they respect that, then you can start going for stuff like throw on wake up or stance stuff, etc. Matchups, I'm still trying to figure out matchups, to be honest, but my initial impressions is that Yuel is strong. She has different ways to deal with pretty much all matchups, and none of them feels unwinnable. I think any match where you can abuse 5M or backflip is really good. Characters without strong ground normals and fireballs, generally she does well. But if you have a character that has a strong grounded normal that can hit her out of the flip and contest her 5M, and she has fireballs and they have fireballs to stop her approach or stop her flip shenanigans, I think generally those are the harder matchups, right? So I think something like a bad matchup would be Belial, Zeta, Percival. Characters that, again, have really good grounded normals and have good fireballs. Good matchups would be something like Ladiva, Sora's, Luane. These characters don't really have anything to contest your flipping in neutral, and they really have a hard time contesting 5M as well. I don't know like 100% like how winnable they are. You know, maybe Yuel's actually the worst character in the game and Luane's broken and it's actually not a good matchup. I'm just getting searched. I really do think you know, Yuel is strong, but in general, that's kind of how I feel about matchups. Some additional links, right? Follow my Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, of course. You know, you can get matches on Granblue versus Fan. Frame data is on the Dust Loop wiki. Definitely check that out. And most of the people are posting Twitter stuff, right? On the hashtags. There's actually 2 hashtags for this character, and I'm sure when this video is posted, it'll be the same. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the guide. Again, hope you guys like this character. Hope you guys got something out of this. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, that sort of thing. Definitely helps me out. It's free to do, and appreciate the support. And if you guys have any questions, leave in the comments below, or you know, just stop by my Twitch, ask me a question, or stop in the Discord, ask me some questions. Definitely willing to help, because again, this character is so much fun to play, and we're all still learning her. So 2H. Oh my god, I can't like say notations and actually do the combo at the same time. You get a full combo and hit. You get a full combo and hit, I swear, guys. Oh my god. Yo, this is like more nervous than like a tournament, man. Recording shit for a guide, it's crazy.